Did my card go through?
Oh no.
Your small business depends on its internet. So switch to Verizon Business. And you could get LTE business internet starting at $39 a month when paired with select business mobile plans. That's unlimited data for unlimited business.
There we go.
Get the internet you need at the price you want. Verizon Business. Starting price for LTE business internet, 25 megabits per second, unlimited data plan with select Verizon Business smartphone plan savings. Terms apply.
Whether you bond over streaming binge-worthy videos, watching sports recaps, video gaming, or by unplugging altogether, the 2026 Lincoln Nautilus Hybrid helps keep you connected throughout your journey. Learn more at Lincoln.com. Available connectivity features and functionality vary by model. Package pricing, trials, and term lengths vary by model. Video streaming and games are only available while parked.
This episode is brought to you by Stouffer's. Here comes three-time juggling champion Natalia Rogers. She's juggling law school, her TA job. Oh, narrowly catches the laundry. What's that fourth ball? Parents unexpectedly showed up at dinner time? Is that too much for Natalia? Not with Stouffer's Chicken Alfredo and its mouth-watering mix of Asiago, Romano, and Parmesan. When you're juggling four things at once and the clock strikes dinner, think Stouffer's.
Oh, it's such a clutch off-season pickup, Dave.
I was worried we'd bring back the same team.
I meant those blackout motorized shades.
Blinds.com made it crazy affordable to replace our old blinds.
Hard to install?
No, it's easy. I installed these and then got some for my mom. She talked to a design consultant for free and scheduled a professional measure and install.
Hall of Fame son.
They're the #1 online retailer of custom window coverings in the world.
Blinds.com is the GOAT.
Visit Blinds.com now for up to 45% off with minimum purchase plus a free professional measure. Rules and restrictions apply.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Kelly Green Hour, the playoff edition, as it is Wildcard Weekend in the National Football League. 6 games to be played, 2 Saturday, 3 Sunday, 1 Monday, to get you to divisional round play next week, as the Philadelphia Eagles have the middle game on Sunday at 4:30 p.m. Eastern Time against the San Francisco 49ers. I'm your host, LJ Harrell, and as always, I am joined by my co-host, Connor Donald. Connor, what's going on, man? It's been a week, I guess, since we last got on here together.
Yeah, like I said, it felt weird not seeing you on Tuesday, but we didn't feel the Sunday game warranted an entire show. So here we are.
No sense in putting something out there that could be 5 minutes, maybe. Before we jump into what we want to discuss today, as always, follow us on Twitter at Kelly Green Hour. Follow Connor on Twitter at Connor10. Follow me on Twitter at LJHarrell54. And follow the Eagles Pinpool Network on Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, wherever you get your podcasts at Eagles Pinpool Network. And if you're joining us live in the chat, let us know your thoughts on this upcoming game, players to watch, predictions, keys to the game. Is this the matchup you preferred? Did the Eagles do the right thing on Sunday last week against the Commanders in the Week 18 matchup? And that's where I want to start. The big question going in, and we discussed it last Friday, is did Sirianni make the right choice? And I'm going to tell you one thing where I thought, after watching that game, the Eagles weren't coaching to win that game. I think they preferred the San Francisco 49ers over the LA Rams or over the Green Bay Packers. The Green Bay Packers didn't play anybody, so they're going to be rested going into that Bears game. And I think the Packers can actually beat the Bears. Maybe we'll do a quick, at the end, we'll do quick predictions on the other 5 games. And the Niners had to play all out on last Saturday against the Seahawks because they were still playing for the #1 seed in the NFC West. And they're banged up. Like, they have no linebackers right now. All their linebackers are hurt. Now, I'm not saying, are the Eagles going to be able to take advantage of that? That's yet to be seen. I'm not going to say that that's what they're going to do. But they're down, like, Kaiser White just got signed off the street. They got Eric Kendricks they brought up off of the practice squad. So they're going to be playing, like, 5th and 6th string linebackers. Ricky Pearsall hasn't practiced all week. Now he's questionable. We'll see if he plays. It's going to be tough. Trent Williams was a limited participant. He called himself a game time decision. He's probably going to play. But how effective will he be on a hamstring? It's not going to be as cold as it typically would be in Philly on a January. So, like, that helps him, because if it was going to be in the 20s and 30s, or even the teens, that would definitely hamper a hamstring. But it's going to be in the 40s, so, like, maybe it won't hamper it as much. But this team is banged up. They have a lot of good players on the offensive side of the ball, obviously. Brock Purdy, Christian McCaffrey, George Kittle. Jawan Jennings is okay. Like offensively, they've been able to put up numbers. Now, the one thing people were talking about before that game against Seattle, which they put up 3 points, they were putting up a lot of numbers. Look at the schedule. They had one of the easiest schedules in football. The Browns, the Titans, like they weren't really playing much of anybody. So I mean, look, they were beating who's on their schedule, and that's exactly what they're supposed to do. But when they went up against a really good defense in Seattle, they didn't do anything. And the Eagles have a comparable defense to Seattle. But kind of going back to my original point, Connor, I think the Eagles coached that game. I'm not going to say they played that game because obviously the players wanted to win. But I think the coaching staff coached that game the way they did for a reason. And they wanted to, quote unquote, pick their opponent. Obviously, they had their eyes on the Detroit-Chicago game. Detroit was up 16-0. Chicago came back to tie it. And then Detroit was able to win it at the very end. And if the Eagles would have won, they would have got the 2 seed and would host Green Bay. Eagles have beaten Green Bay 3 times in the last year and a half. It'd be tough to beat them a 4th time. Like it's tough to beat anybody, 4 consecutive times. The same is going to be said for the Rams if the Eagles and the Rams meet up, whether it's in divisional round or the NFC Championship game, if it were to happen. But I think that the Eagles kind of picked their opponent by the way that they coached last week's game, and they feel more confident going up against the San Francisco 49ers than they would have Green Bay or LA. What are your thoughts? I know I went a long way around that.
I mean, to be honest, I think they coached the exact way we expected them to coach. They played the same way with Tanner McKee as they would have played with Jalen Hurts. This is the mentality they've gone with. They went conservative, and if they won with the conservative mindset, they were happy. If they lost, they lost. I'm not going to sit here and, on Monday and Tuesday, the media was reacting as you made the wrong decision. You should have played the starters. No, I stand by the decision. I stand by, the mindset that Nick Sirianni had and what he said in the press conference. It's plain and simple. I thought health was better than the 2 seed, which is totally fair. I understand there's people who think that if it runs through the link, we're back in the Super Bowl again. But nobody knows if that is the true outcome. Nobody knows if that's going to be the true outcome of the game. Yeah.
You froze for a second, Connor, but you're back.
So, all good. Yeah. So yeah, no one knows that would have been the true outcome. I understand that GOAT playing the entirety through the link, there's an advantage, a home field advantage, blah, blah, blah. But at the end of the day, I don't know if I stand by Sirianni. I stand by that. And I know that there's a lot of people who like to say, well, if they had played the starters, what would the outcome have been? Do we really believe that the offense was going to change against Washington Commanders? Do we really believe that the outcome would have been dramatically different?
2 weeks before the starters did put up 30 points against Washington. So I do think because they were moving the ball early on when Tanner was throwing the ball to Devontae. Now, if you have all the starters out there, yes, they're going to put points on the board. They're going to win that game because Washington is beat up as well, and the Eagles are just a better team.
Then some people throw out there, and some people like WIP was like, oh, that doesn't make any sense. Some people throw it out there, Grant Calcaterra got hurt. What if that was Dallas Goedert? It makes perfect. Exactly. It makes perfect sense to believe that, Dallas Goedert got hurt. I think Brett Tots got hurt. Marcus Epps got hurt.
So, no, what if it's Dallas Goedert, Reed Blankenship, and Landon Dickerson that got hurt instead of Toth, Johnson, and Calcaterra? Like, exactly. It does make a difference. That's why I was in agreement with what Sirianni did, because they're prioritizing health. A healthy Eagles team can beat anybody in the NFC. And that's what matters. The offensive line gets off their feet for a week. Now, Steen played a lot because he kind of he had to, and he kind of needed to work anyway. But he's kind of young and fresh legs, whatever. So that's whatever. But like getting Jordan Mailata, Landon Dickerson, Cam Jurgens off of their feet and not being beat up for 60 minutes, it's going to help them. Jason Kelce said it this week. He said like just not being out there and being like, it's a mess. You getting in a car crash for, 30, half the time. Let's just say half the time that you're on the field or whatever it is, half the time of a game. By not going through all that activity, not going through all that pounding, like it's going to help you. You're going to feel better. We saw Jalen Carter didn't play for 3 weeks. Now, I know 1 week and 3 weeks are different, but he didn't play for 3 weeks. That game against Buffalo was the best game he played all year. It's going to matter this week. I know Jordan Davis was out there last week, but like he didn't play probably as many snaps as he normally plays. But I just think having guys go out there that Zach Bong and Nakobe Dean that haven't played, Nakobe hasn't played in a couple weeks. Zach Bong off of his feet. Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean off their feet. It's going to matter. And it helps you, you kind of clear your mind mentally, and you physically, your body could start to feel better, and it's going to make a world of difference. And again, we're talking about a San Francisco team that had to play full out, all out against Seattle because they were playing for the number 1 seed. They played all out and lost 13-3. Ben Johnson said, we play football. Some teams rest their starters. They played all out and lost still. And I'm picking Green Bay to beat the Bears. I think Green Bay is going to beat the Bears because Green Bay is favored on the road as the 7 seed against the Bears. There's a reason why. They're going to be fresher. And, they've been in this spot before. This Eagles team, for the most part, has been in the playoffs, been in this spot before. So, we know that the offense is what the offense is, and there will be slight changes. Jalen will run more. I think that's going to be the big change, the big thing that we see that's different. But it does make it. And I think what the Eagles did, they looked at their path. It's San Francisco. Say all the home teams win or whatever. San Francisco, then go to Chicago, and then Seattle or whatever. That means they don't have to play both LA and Seattle. Let LA and Seattle battle each other in the divisional round if LA gets past Carolina, and you don't have to play both of those NFC West teams. This is kind of like the path of least resistance, quote unquote, for the Eagles, and I prefer it that way. I would much rather only play one of Seattle and LA instead of playing both of Seattle and LA. And look, maybe it could still happen that the Eagles get 3 home games. It happened last year. Nobody thought it was going to happen, and Detroit lost to Washington. And so who knows? The Eagles might not have to leave Philly until the Super Bowl, potentially. You never know. But I just think that the Eagles went with the path of least resistance and are trying to avoid, I don't want to say avoid, but trying to set up the matchups to where they don't have to play both LA and Seattle.
Yeah, I mean, going back to the point about rest and starters, Jordan Mailata made the point that, the obvious point that rest matters. And the media likes to speak of it in a very different mindset because Elliott Shore-Parks and Joe Giglio and all those guys, they've never played. They don't play football. They've never played football. They report on football. They don't know what it's like to play the schedule. I understand it's the shortest schedule of all major sports in North America.
It's also the most physical.
Exactly. It's the most physical. So I think that it's important to note with this is, a lot of these guys haven't played, and a lot of the media that have played speak to, the right decision was made. But in hindsight, if you controlled your own destiny, like the Bears, yes, if the Eagles were in the Bears spot, the Eagles would have played their starters. %. I am convinced that is what they would have done. And it's easy for, Ben Johnson to say, we're playing our starters because we're out there to play football. If he was in the same spot as the Philadelphia Eagles, he's not putting most of his starters out there. I can promise you he's not putting them at risk when they don't control their own destiny. It just so happens, you play this depleted Washington Commanders team and the starters look the way that or the backups look the way that they do, and you haven't a chance. Old tendencies die hard, and they got super conservative throughout the game. And you know what? I think the main point I wanted to make on this game, because I think we've gone on longer than we had to about it, is Tanner McKee is who Tanner McKee is. He's a backup for a reason. We ain't getting a first, second, or a third round pick for him in the offseason. He's probably coming back as a backup next season in Philadelphia because that's what he is. And I understand there's probably people who are like, well, what if he had played with the starters? What would he have looked like?
We did see what he looked like with Devontae. So
exactly, but at the end of the day, that really doesn't. To me, that doesn't matter as much as the fact that you're trying to make the backup quarterback the biggest guy in Philadelphia, and there's no reason to make him that guy because, Jalen Hurts is a guy, should be the guy. And then we don't have the best backups are not starters in the NFL. We constantly, our media likes to play it off like they should be and like they can be, but they aren't. And those are the two biggest points to me. Tanner McKee, I think, is a backup, should be a backup. There's not many teams who are going to look at him as a starter. And the media has to stop playing this fact of like every offseason, all these backups could be starters elsewhere, because it always becomes this thing when we have to cut people. And it's always like, well, these guys could be starters elsewhere, and they don't get picked up. They clear waivers, are back on our practice squad, so on and so forth. So I think that game proved what we knew. And
I'll say one thing. I think Tanner McKee is actually better than any of the quarterbacks coming out in the draft this year. So I do think that if somebody wanted to trade for him, they would offer, and if they offered a 2, how we would trade him. That's just me. Also, you're talking about all the backups. Yeah, we know why your boy Jacorian Bennett doesn't play. He's awful. We already knew Kaylee Ringo was.
We knew Keely Ringo.
Jacorian Bennett holds every time, commits a penalty every play. Yeah, you are. Because all season you've been saying you wanted to see Jacorian Bennett, but now we know why Vic doesn't put him out there. And now I'm sitting here saying I really hope Adoree Jackson doesn't get hurt. And I never thought in a million years I would say that, but Adoree Jackson has really means something to this defense. Jacorian Bennett, I know he's going to potentially be here next year because he has a year or whatever left on his deal after the year, but he needs to improve big time. He is bad. We already know Keely Ringo is bad. We know Sidney Brown is bad, but yeah, the love affair that you've had with Bennett, I hope you put those divorce papers in.
I was going to say in Vic we trust. If Vic doesn't like someone, he doesn't like someone for a reason, and it was so blatantly obvious with Jacorian Bennett. We knew Keely Ringo was horrible. And then did you see, I shared that stat about him. He has the 3rd most accepted penalty yards against him, and the guy ahead of him had double the coverage snaps, and the first place guy had triple the coverage snaps. This guy did that statistic on, I think it was 150 coverage snaps, and he was the 3rd highest accepted penalties against among cornerbacks. He's terrible. I get that there may be a value to him on special teams, but can you even justify the roster spot next year for Keely Ringo? I mean, next year is to talk about next year, but I agree with you. Adoree Jackson absolutely cannot get hurt. Absolutely cannot.
The one thing I'll disagree, you said that obviously in Vic we trust, and if he didn't like Adoree Jackson at the beginning of the season in training camp, and here we are. So
he didn't like I think he did at the end of the day, he didn't like the look of the CB2 spot, but he's like, who can I make work? And at the end of the day, he grew to Adoree Jackson. He never started to speak more highly at the beginning. Like you said, he didn't like Adoree Jackson, but he started to kind of buy into Adoree Jackson, whereas he never really spoke highly of Bennett or Ringo at any point throughout that whole process.
Yeah, so that's the kind of take that we got from that. The backups are pretty bad. Now, let's move to the wild card game against the San Francisco 49ers. Eagles are coming in rested, pretty much healthy. If you want to consider Andrew Makuba a starter, then they're coming in with 21 of 22. But the way Epps has been playing, I don't know if Makuba would have got a starting spot back because Epps has been playing really well. But Eagles are coming in healthy. And the one thing that I agree that Sirianni said, in 22 they were the number 1 seed, so they had a bye. They went to the Super Bowl. 23 they played in that Week 18 game against the Giants. AJ got hurt. They got blown out in the playoff game. In 24 last year, they gave themselves the Week 18 bye, and then went 3 home games, went to the Super Bowl and won it. So they're if that holds true, the Eagles should be in for a decently long playoff run. But this is going to be a tough game. San Francisco's offense is good. Their defense, not so good. We have to see if the Eagles offense, let's start with the Eagles offense. Are they going to be able to take advantage of the San Francisco, deficiencies on offense or on defense, excuse me. No linebackers, not very good against the run. They have 20 sacks in a 17-game season. Let me say that again. 20 sacks in a 17-game season. That seems almost impossible. Their best pass rusher is Bryce Huff. Yes, I know he's, as Jordan Mailata said, Super Bowl champion Bryce Huff. But yeah, what are your thoughts on this San Francisco 49ers defense?
Well, I don't know if you saw the post that's out there about Robert Saleh and what he said in his press conference, whether it was today or yesterday, but he basically more or less said that they asked about why do you think Saquon Barkley isn't having the same success that he had yet last year. And he basically said, I'm not going to answer that schematically. And that was basically how he ended it. So that should give everyone, belief that we aren't the as fans who are frustrated with Kevin Patullo, we aren't the only ones who see it. Robert Saleh, who is one of the best defensive coordinators, one of the smartest defensive coordinators. We have the smartest, I know. But one of the best and one of the smartest in the NFL says that type of comment, doesn't even want to comment on the offense as a whole. Saquon Barkley as a whole, who is, very good running back, speaks volumes to how people in this league think about Kevin Patullo, think about this offense. So when you ask the question, do I think we can take advantage of the deficiencies in this defense? I don't know. I'm stuck on Kevin Patullo, how this offense played. I understand you were playing with a lot of backups last week, and the situation was very different with Tanner McKee versus Jalen Hurts. But for 16 games prior to that, you figured it out for about 4 or 5 games of the whole, and 2 or 3 of them were against subpar teams, well below the teams that we were expecting to play, except the Raiders. We obviously were expecting to play the Raiders the way they were. But, the Commanders game, I don't know. I really am not overly confident in the situation. We don't want to look to next year, but obviously there's a lot of great offensive minds who are out there and who are going to be available, and it's going to be interesting to see where the chips land among the 8 vacancies. After this week, there could be, a 9th, a 10th. You never know what happens with teams like Buffalo, Green Bay, and
Pittsburgh.
Who those coaches seem to be on a hot seat to win this week and make a playoff run.
So the only issue with that
I don't know.
We could be in a spot where we were last year if the Eagles go on a run. Like they won the Super Bowl last year, and we had a feeling it was different than 22 because we didn't know Steichen was leaving and we didn't know Gannon was leaving.
But it's more like the Gannon situation all over again. You waited out, and
not necessarily, because it's not. Patullo is not secretly interviewing. We just want him gone, so it's not a secret. So I don't think it's anything like that. But it's like last year because we went to the Super Bowl and the Eagles, and then Moore got hired by the Saints, and all the other coaching staffs were put together, and it was like. I know the Eagles didn't bring anybody in. I wish they did. But, if the Eagles go on a run, go to the NFC Championship game, go to the Super Bowl, and still want to get rid of Patullo, which is still possible, even if they win the Super Bowl, it's still possible.
It should still be what they want. It shouldn't be possible. It should be what they want.
It's going to be in the same realm, because we're going to be sitting here with not the pick of the litter, because all the coaching staff is, in theory, unless somebody's waiting for somebody on the Eagles or whatever AFC team gets to the Super Bowl staff, they're all still going to, we're not going to have the Mike McDaniels or the Stefanski, who's probably going to get a head coaching job. Cliff Kingsbury could be hired somewhere. All these offensive guys that are available right now, they're going to be poached up. So I know, we always talk about, we want consistency for Jalen Hurts. I just don't want consistency with Patullo.
No, this isn't the consistency that we want. And to that point that you make, I don't think it's fair that while half the league, or nearly half the league it would be half the league at this point, is playing meaningful football games, they don't get their choice. People can interview their candidate, their coaching staff, but they don't get a pick of anybody who's available should they believe that they want to move on from somebody within their coaching staff.
Well, because they don't really know. It's tough because you don't know if you really want to get rid of somebody.
But that's the point that I was getting at. I believe that there should be no hiring of anybody until after the Super Bowl. I know that teams who have already started the process would still be at an advantage, because you would say, okay, the Monday after the Super Bowl, you can hire people. But if there's somebody who's looking for a meaningful opportunity with a winning franchise that wants an opportunity, because we all know Kellen Moore got that. If Kellen Moore stayed in Dallas, if he was given the opportunity to stay in Dallas and he ends up on a team that's around 500, below 500, is he getting that New Orleans Saints job, or is he staying in Dallas for another year? He's probably staying in Dallas for another year. The perspective is, if you get an opportunity to be with Philadelphia, who you are highly confident will end up going next year and winning 10, 11, 12 games, give you an opportunity to look like a stud head coaching candidate, then you're going to take that opportunity versus going somewheres where you get more control over personnel, blah, blah, blah. Certain circumstances seem to play to your favor, but you're not necessarily going to be put in an opportunity to be a head coach the next year or get head coaching interviews like you think you would. To me, I mean, I know that, college football is going through that same calendar situation. I feel like the NFL's in a similar situation. Like you should be allowed to interview these people, but you should not be allowed to hire anybody before the season is completely done. And yet the Miami Dolphins have essentially hired, a GM and they're going to probably go there and hire a coach and stuff. It just, to me, it doesn't make sense. You should be waiting until the season's over and give teams an opportunity. I understand these teams probably aren't going to change, but everybody should have the same opportunity to go and make a pitch to some of these guys. Getting away from the game, but yes.
It's a tough situation. Like when you're good, you know that you're going to changes will be made in regards to, coaches being poached or whatever. It's just we're in that inevitable. We hate the offensive coordinator, so something needs to change. And unfortunately, we don't know if it's going to. And we know what that, back in 2019, they kind of gave a, ultimatum to Doug Peterson, get rid of Press Taylor or or you're fired. And he was like, hey, I'm fired. I want to keep Press Taylor. And then they moved on.
And that essentially seems to have happened with John Harbaugh. Some of these guys seem to stick to their coordinators, their play callers, and they're like, I'm bringing this guy. Tom Monken. I'm bringing this guy, and if you don't want me to, then I'm out. And he ended up being out in Baltimore. And, I hope Sirianni doesn't fall on the stake like for Kevin Patullo, because I know that he stood up for Patullo throughout the season. I think it went on long to the point that it got to a point of no return where he had to be that way. But at the end of the day, I don't even know if Laurie and Roseman would be sold on a Super Bowl run. I don't know. Like, you'd have to have this offense look so different. Like, you literally had Robert Saleh laugh in your face without literally being in your face in a press conference, because he knows, we all know, why Saquon Barkley has not looked like he did last year. And
it's the offensive line. The offensive line hasn't been as healthy.
Yeah, in a way I agree, but also look at the offense. You have your offensive coordinator sitting there saying, well, we got to get in a better spot in third down, and he's running on first down to get to 1st and 12, runs on second down to get to second to get to 3rd and 14, and he's sitting there saying, we have to do better in that situation. Who's the person who's responsible for putting them in that spot and for being in that better spot? That's your play caller. You can blame the offensive line, but at the end of the day, I think more of this falls on Kevin Patullo than it does the offensive line, and then it does Jalen Hurts, despite what some people may think.
Adams Exploits is joining us. Thank you, sir. Gannon screwed the Eagles by not being properly prepared for the Super Bowl. Yeah, that's true. He's the reason why we lost that Super Bowl, along with the Fugazi pass or holding call in the fourth quarter on James
Bradbury. Yeah,
but that's something we don't need to harp on, I guess.
Back to the game. We're getting too off topic.
So looking at the San Francisco defense, like I said, Bryce Huff is their best edge rusher right now. Yetur Gross-Matos is going to play. Fred Warner's still on IR. He started practicing on side fields this week, but he's obviously not going to be ready. I think they said that he's probably going to be ready for the NFC Championship game if the San Francisco 49ers make it. D. Winters, questionable. Luke Gifford, questionable. Eric Kendricks is their starting middle linebacker. That's insane. He was on their practice squad. Renardo Green showed up on their injury report today as questionable. He's one of their starting corners. They have Diamador Lenore. If you look at their defense though, like AJ Brown and Devontae Smith should be able to win their matchups. It's going to be up to the offensive line to give Jalen Hurts time if they decide to pass the football to hit the receivers. And again, we're talking about a team that had 20 sacks in 17 games. So you would think that they should be able to give Jalen Hurts time. Also, though, Jalen is 0-1 against Robert Saleh coach defenses. They lost to the Jets of all teams. He had a bad game. He turned the ball over a lot that game. So we'll see like what Robert Saleh has. He's a good defensive coordinator, but he doesn't have much to play with right now. And to coach with. So it's just hopefully. I'm not saying the Eagles are going to come out with a totally new playbook and they've just been hiding stuff waiting for the playoffs. But like the one big thing I think we'll see, the thing that I think that'll be the big difference is going to be Jalen more on the run. Because if Jalen is on the run, then that opens up Saquon because now Bryce Huff or whoever's playing the edge is going to have to hold off for half a second to make sure Jalen's not taking it. And that should maybe open up a lane or a cutback lane for Saquon. And then if Saquon gets going, that opens up the passing game because then the linebackers can't drop back immediately. The linebackers kind of have to hold for a second to see if they're running it. And then that could hopefully, if the Eagles decide to use the middle of the field, open things up for Dallas Goedert, Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. You know, when you look at this team, like the reason that statistically they look like a better Russian defense than they actually do is because most teams pass against them because they're one of the worst passing defenses in the NFL. They're not a good passing defense. And then when you look at a lot of the Russian offenses that they've played, there hasn't been, you know, the Titans ended up putting 100. The Seahawks put 108. And we know that that's pretty good. Cleveland Browns put 138 on them. I think they still had Judkins at that time. You know, this defense hasn't really. They've played some decent competition at times. They've been okay, but not great at times. It's just been inconsistent. And the main reason they've been inconsistent is a lot to do with the injuries. And I understand there's a lot of people who are like, Kyle Shanahan deserves coach of the year because look what he's working with. I agree. But year over year, Kyle Shanahan works with a similar circumstance where there's a lot of injuries. There's a lot of banged up players. I don't know if it's how
Speaking
they coach. I did see that.
Did you see the story?
Yeah, or there's a story that they work beside this electromagnetic field. And if you look at the data, it actually causes weaker joints and muscles. Exactly. So, I mean, could that be true? Maybe. I mean, I would expect most teams aren't going to put themselves beside an electromagnetic field, like a giant electromagnetic field to practice or to play because Levi Field's right there. Like it's the field's right here and the practice field's right there, and then this electromagnetic thing's right beside it. I'm not necessarily bought into it for sure yet, but obviously the data is there for people who look into that stuff. But I agree with you. You know, this defense is ultimately middle of the pack, and it's middle of the pack for a reason because they're missing a lot of bodies, they're missing a lot of really good players, and the Eagles have to take advantage of it. They need to be able to take advantage of it. And, you know, Robert Saleh saying what he said should be a reason for Kevin Patullo to really, you know, go out there and put his best foot forward. And he needs to at some point, like you said, will Jalen Hurts run more? I hope he runs more because the stats are out there. He has his design runs are way down. His yards per carry are way down. Everything statistically from a rushing standpoint is way down.
Did you see what Jalen said and how he said it when they asked him about the whole running thing? And he goes, well, you know, that's what this coordinator, and then goes, I meant KP. He doesn't like Kevin Patullo.
No,
I'm almost convinced he doesn't.
But you see it the way that Hurts spoke, the way that A.J. Brown has spoke, the way that Robert Saleh has spoke. It is quite clear if you ever did not back Kevin Patullo, you have been given great credence over this week by itself that you are 100% accurate. That it is more about, because I know that you spoke about the offensive line, it is more to do with Kevin Patullo than anything in why this offense just isn't working. And the fact that Nick Sirianni has stood by it, I hope that when push comes to shove, if he's told this is the end of the road, you die on the stake for Kevin Patullo, or you come with us and we're hiring your next offensive coordinator. He's been given his last opportunity in Philadelphia to hire any coaching staff. So he's going to have to fall on that stake and be like, okay, I will go forward. You guys pick the coaching staff. Or he's going to say, no, I want to pick my coaching staff, and he could be canned at the end of the season.
I mean, I guess that's the issue with him not being a good play caller too, because even if they have to go out there and find a Vic Fangio offensive guy. And that's tough. Like, the only guy I can think of is Frank Reich or even Doug Peterson, but I don't know if they would entertain bringing Doug Peterson back.
There's some people who talk about Cliff Kingsbury, and do people really believe that he'd get it? Well, exactly. There's people out there who believe, like, do you think Cliff Kingsbury will actually get a head coaching job?
Yes. I also think that even if he doesn't get a head coaching job, he's going to end up in Detroit. He's going to end up in Baltimore. He's going to end up somewhere else. With those type of offenses, because Johnny Morton got fired by Detroit, and obviously Harbaugh is gone in Baltimore. So whoever gets hired there, unless it's say Stefanski, he can call his own plays. But I do think Kingsbury, if he doesn't get a head coaching job, is going to end up in a place like that, to where he can, call plays for a dynamic quarterback type.
Adams exploits. KP has no idea to run an offense. It takes knowledge. And we see that, you can tell that for the first 10 to 15 plays, he has a plan. And then after that, it just goes down the shitter. He just does not seem to understand or realize. Which is also
why I always say, like, the reason why that they run late into the play clock is because he doesn't think 2-3 plays ahead. He calls a play,
for sure.
He calls a play, waits for the outcome, and then just tries to decide. And that's a big frustrating part. Like, I want to see, they need to be able to break the huddle at 15 so that Jalen and the offensive line can see the defense and they can make any adjustments, instead of always snapping it with 1 second left, which gives the defensive line just a shot to go right at and jump, get a fast start off the ball. You can't call plays on 2 because you need to snap it. So hopefully, that's one of the big things I want to change. On the Eagles side,
nine times out of 10, like, you're gonna snap the ball, and doesn't matter what jump the defense gets, you're more likely to get called for a delay of game than they're gonna get called for that jump offside. So I agree with you with that standpoint. Before we move to the defensive side of the ball, they have to get that in way quicker. And, like, when I watch other games and these guys have the play call in, they're going to the line at 15 seconds. They're there at 12. They're looking at it. And we know, and we talked about it earlier in the season, and other analysts who are far better watching all 22 than us have said, if one of Jalen Hurts' greatest strengths is being able to get to the line and look and make the decision, give him options so he can decide, I'm going to run the ball, I'm going to pass the ball, I'm going to give it off to Saquon Barkley. He needs to be the ultimate decider of that, because the offenses where he's the ultimate decider of that have been the most successful Philadelphia Eagles offenses.
For the Eagles offense, real quick, Lane Johnson's questionable. He practice limited over the last couple of days. He's going to play. It's just a matter, can he stay on the field? And then, again, you're going to have A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert, Saquon Barkley, Jalen Hurts, all those guys coming off a week of rest. So hopefully, they're refreshed and we kind of see an extra step. Adam's exploits. Harbaugh looks like the Giants' new head coach. I honestly think Harbaugh, he's not going to do interviews until next week. I think he's waiting for this week to see what happens. You mentioned it earlier, Connor. The Bills, if they lose, Sean McDermott could be gone. Pittsburgh, if they lose, Tomlin potentially could be gone. I doubt it, but you never know. Hell, even in Philly, if the Eagles lose, depending on how they lose and what happens, maybe.
Well, I think Green Bay too. Like, I think more the eyes are on Green Bay and Buffalo. I don't know if he would go to Pittsburgh. I don't know if.
Yeah, I know
that'd
be a tough.
And then I see there was a report that came out right before we went on the air. Like, he wants full decision over the roster. He wants $20 million plus a year. Like, I think there's a monumental that'll happen in probably New York. That's why
Joe Shane will be gone.
Well, exactly. But that's the thing. You can be like, oh, Joe Shane will get his opportunity to continue to be the GM, but he's not making any decisions next year. He's just going to be there as more of a talking head.
So we'll see what happens on the Harbaugh front. I don't know if we want him with I like Harbaugh. I don't know. Maybe obviously he ran his course in Baltimore. Don't want anybody good running the Giants, obviously. Jumping over to the Eagles defense. They're going to be refreshed, having Jalen Carter come off of a weeks. By the way, the way Jalix Hunt played last week, he's the first Eagle ever to lead the team in interceptions and sacks. He had 3 interceptions this year. And we're talking about a team with Zach Ball and Cooper DeJean, Quinion, who can't catch, Mitchell. Like, it's crazy just how freaky athletic he is. Like, he was out there covering Deebo Samuel. And again, for the second year in a row, the second half of the season, he just turned it on. And we saw what he did in the playoffs last year. So I'm intrigued and excited to see what he can do on Sunday against Brock Purdy. I mean, he's going to be lining up potentially against Trent Williams. I mean, Jalen Phillips is also on that side. So it'll be interesting. And then if he lines up on the right side, they got Colton McKivitz. I'm really intrigued by the battle that these guys can, that the offensive line of the Niners and the defensive line of the Eagles, the battle that they're going to have, and trying to get pressure on Purdy by the Eagles. And I'm also looking forward, and with Nakobe being back, the collisions him and Kyle Juszczyk could have, it could be insane. Could really be insane.
Yeah, I mean, the San Francisco offensive line has been, middle of the pack, heading towards the weaker half of it. But I mean, they have been playing with the backup quarterback for, portions of this season. Brock Purdy has played started 9 games. Mac Jones has started 8 games. Mac Jones looked pretty good in those games as well. It'll be interesting to see, like you said, I give the advantage to the defense, the San Francisco or the Eagles defense over San Francisco's offense. When you look at San Francisco's defense versus the Eagles offense, the only big game changer is I trust Kyle Shanahan way more, but Kyle Shanahan hasn't had a lot of success with Vic Fangio, as a lot of people have said. And there was the talk, I think it was on Get Up or First Take today, where they were talking about how there's other offensive coordinators who are saying they're scared of Vic Fangio. We got lucky with the fact that Vic Fangio wants to retire here.
Sean McVay said it.
Yeah, Sean McVay said this is where, when you have Sean McVay and more or less Kyle Shanahan saying it, you know that you have 2 of the best offensive coordinators, 2 of the best offensive play callers in the game saying they're afraid of Vic Fangio and the respect that they have for Vic Fangio. The Philadelphia Eagles got lucky. Too bad Jonathan Gannon didn't leave earlier, so we could have had him a year earlier. But at the end of the day, people fear him because he is so smart. And you see it since the bye week, and what he's done with this defense has been incredible. They've been one of the top 3 defenses pretty much in every statistical category across the board. And then Quinion Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, Jalix Hunt in his development, Moro Jomo in his development, Jordan Davis and his acceleration this year. Vic Fangio has done some amazing work. I don't envy Howie Roseman and how he has to prioritize the decisions that he's going to have to make over the next 2 off seasons. But I mean, it's been huge. Vic Fangio is such an absolutely amazing defensive mind. And there's a lot of concern, are some of these guys that are working under Vic Fangio going to get defensive coordinator interviews? So far, not yet. But, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they do. But can you really match the mind of Vic Fangio? Vic Fangio versus Kyle Shanahan is going to be so much better than Robert Saleh versus Kevin Patullo.
You mentioned the guys underneath him, like Christian Parker is going to be a defensive coordinator one day. And it would
someday,
suck
for sure.
If the Eagles were to lose him. Maybe he can be the heir apparent to Fangio, depending on how long Fangio.
And then I think it's Clint Hurd on the defensive line as well. Like
he was the defensive coordinator in Seattle, so he has that experience.
Mm-hmm.
I do remember, last year early in the season, I was saying Fangio looked like he was cooked, like he just was out of it. But yeah, like he's a Hall of Fame assistant coach, Hall of Fame defensive coordinator. Brett Eclipse, thank you for joining us.
You want to throw shade at my Jacorian Bennett take. Let's look back at your Vic Fangio take.
Everybody was saying it about Fangio because the defense was getting cooked early in the year. Brett Eclipse hoped this team takes advantage of the fact that the 49ers currently have 0 linebackers from their initial 53-man roster healthy right now. We didn't mention that. We just don't know if Patullo is smart enough to do that, and if they're willing to take advantage of the middle of the field. So we'll see if the Eagles decide to do that.
And I see that a lot of people are talking.
I would be more upset at a Quinion Mitchell All-Pro snub than I would be at a first-round exit. In all honesty, that's how good Quinion has been. Now, I would be more upset with a first-round exit. I love Quinion, and he should be an All-Pro. The fact that, he did make the Pro Bowl, which is definitely good, and You got to think about Stingley. What are the other corners? I can't think quickly off the top of my head. There are some good corners in there.
It's AJ Terrell in
So
Atlanta.
We'll see what happens with that, but we're not going to worry about that now. Let's get through the playoffs and defending this championship. But I would be disappointed in a first round exit. Like the Eagles decided, they rested last week. They decided, look, we're going for it because we can't get the number 1 seed. We can't get a bye. So let's give ourselves a bye and we're going to come out and let's hope they come out full force. Now, if you remember last year, the first game against Green Bay, the Eagles didn't play all that. Like they played, like they got the turnover right away and then Jalen threw the touchdown pass to Jahan Dotson, but it was still a struggle offensively. They didn't really start picking it up offensively till the NFC Championship game. So we have to realize it's going to be a close game. That's just this year's Eagles. The offense is what the offense is. And they just have to be able to find a way to take advantage of some miscues by the opponent.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like the
Connor went away.
Am I back?
Brad Eclipse says, I saw reporting from Mike Garafolo this morning that a win against the Niners would be good enough for Nick Sirianni to personally decide to keep Patullo. Yeah, I don't know. Well, it depends on how it looks because they can win 3-0. And yeah, that's not good enough offensively. I think that the offense has to start looking like a functional offense. I do think the devil's in the details with how they win. So I still think it's up in the air. Like, I don't know if the front office is going to be able to live with the offense looking the way it looks, but I don't know if Patullo can do anything to change the way a lot of people think about him right now. Like, they'd have to go up and put 100 points for me to be like, all right, he's good. They're not. I don't know if they're going to put up 100 points in 4 games. If they play 4 games this postseason, are they going to put up 400? Are they going to put up 100 points? Like, they put up 55 in the NFC Championship game. They put up 95 points in the NFC Championship game in the Super Bowl last year. Are they going to put up 100 points if they make it all the way to the Super Bowl? Are they going to put up 100 combined points? They rushed for over 800 yards in 4 games. Are they going to be able to do that again? Like, and that's not all on Patullo per se, because that's going to be on the players on the field, offensive line. But he's got to become more consistent and better with his play calls. One play has to lead to something later on. Don't just call a play, wait for the outcome, and then be like, all right, what are we doing now? No, think 2, 3, 4 plays ahead, as I've been saying all season when it comes to Patullo.
Yeah, no, I agree with what you said. Sorry, dropped out there. As you can see, my background disappeared. Now you see my bedroom. But no, I agree with you on that point. Like, I don't know if anything's really going to save Kevin Patullo at this point because, Howie Roseman and Jeffrey Lurie definitely have an eye on what fans are thinking and what they're seeing in the media. Even if they don't say it, it's not this dramatic impact. But Kevin Patullo, like you said, would have to have this massive run through the playoffs, not just winning, like you said, 10-3, 13 to, like, not these games where your offense puts up, 1 score or something. You can't have that. That's just not going to happen. Like, if you go out there and you put up 30 plus points a game, predominantly based around the offense, there's a very good chance maybe they would consider it. But I mean, I think it's going to take a lot more than a win against the Niners to keep Kevin Patullo around, and it's going to take a significant run in the playoffs with significantly high-scoring games to get Kevin Patullo in as offensive coordinator next year, and I think that they would face incredible flack next year if they got to that point where Kevin Patullo is back next year. I just don't see a way that it's going to happen. It's just, in a way, unfortunate that we're not in the run-ins for any of these offensive minds that could be out there. Obviously, you have to wait till they get through the, head coach and interview process. But, at the end of the day, Kevin Patullo, who was it? Whoever had it on their NFL report, like a young offensive mind who might get interviews this offseason, Kevin Patullo has not had any requests even for an head coach and interview.
To be fair, Nick Sirianni didn't either when we hired him. So
No, but at least Kevin Patullo, well, I mean, I guess Sirianni had some play calling experience, but at least Kevin Patullo clearly had the play calling experience on a well above 500 Philadelphia Eagles offense and Philadelphia Eagles team. But I mean, at the end of the day, he hasn't had any calls for interview at all. So, I mean, it will be interesting to see. It is kind of surprising that there's reporting out there to think that Kevin Patullo could be safe by getting through the wild card round. I think you need to show a lot to continue to keep that job next year.
Looking at going back to the Niners offense, who do you think covers George Kittle? Who do you think is going to be the primary guy when he comes out the backfield covering Christian McCaffrey? They're the two weapons, honestly, if you're being honest, if you can stop Kittle and McCaffrey, you kind of slow down and stop this Niners offense. So the Eagles have to Fangio's got to devise a plan to stop them. Yes, they have Jawan Jennings. Yes, they have Demarcus Robinson, Kendrick Bourne, maybe Ricky Pearsall, but I don't think so. Sky Moore, yes, they have those guys. But if we're being honest, it's Christian McCaffrey and it's George Kittle.
I mean, I think it's 100%. I think it's 100% Cooper DeJean's going to cover one of them. How Vic decides to play it. I mean, I could guess it, and I'm going to be 100% wrong because Vic plays it such a very specific way. And then it's going to be whatever linebacker he decides he wants to pull back in coverage. Like you said, Jalix Hunt has 3 interceptions on the year. There's going to be times where we're 100% seeing Jalix Hunt back in coverage against potentially. Hopefully not Christian McCaffrey, but likely potentially against, George Kittle. And then from there, it's going to be the decision on, do you want to put Dean back in coverage or do you want to put Baum back in coverage? It's going to purely depend on the play call, but I think it's going to land on Cooper DeJean plus one of the linebackers, dependent situationally on how Vic Fangio is going to call it, which I don't even want to try and guess where that's how he's going to call it in that situation.
Well, I like the George Kittle versus Cooper DeJean, both Iowa boys. That should be a good matchup. I do we did see against Tampa, where it was Jahad Campbell in coverage, but Bucky Irvin beat him on a
Prime's exclusive wildcard playoff game is Saturday night. Jordan Love and the Packers take on Caleb Williams and the Bears. Not a Prime member? Sign up for a 30-day free trial to stream the game.
That's going to be caught for the touchdown.
NFC North rivals square off in the latest chapter of the NFL's oldest feud. The Packers and Bears in Prime's exclusive wildcard playoff game. Saturday, 7:30 p.m. Eastern. Only on Prime. Sign up for a 30-day free trial today. Restrictions apply. See Amazon.com/Amazon Prime for details.
Why do growing businesses love working in Slack? Let's ask Christy at Ari Bikes.
Running things in Slack saves me so much time.
AI summaries save 97 minutes per week. What say you, Rox from Gosney?
Slack helps us build community. It helps us build connection.
Your partners, vendors and customers all in one place. Take us on home, Ashley from Caraway.
If we didn't have Slack tomorrow, I would explode.
Well, let's not let that happen. Visit slack.com/podcast to get 50% off Slack Business Plus.
Does it ever feel like you're a marketing professional just speaking into the void? But with LinkedIn ads, you can know you're reaching the right decision makers, a network of 130 million of them, in fact. You can even target buyers by job title, industry, company, seniority, skills, and did I say job title? See how you can avoid the void and reach the right buyers with LinkedIn ads. Spend $250 on your first campaign and get a free $250 credit for the next one. Get started at linkedin.com/campaign. Terms and conditions apply.
New Year, same extra value meals at McDonald's. So now get 2 snack wraps, plus fries, and a medium soft drink for just $8.
For limited time only. Prices and participation may vary. Prices may be higher in Hawaii, Alaska, and California, and for delivery.
Good morning, Crust. It's a great day to be a bread brother.
Ugh, mornings are not my jam. Or jelly.
Oh, come on. Stop loafing around.
I just woke up feeling hollow inside.
Just grab one of the new Morning Uncrustables sandwiches, like Bright-Eyed Berry or Up an Apple, filled with 12 grams of protein and tons of deliciousness. Crust, what are you eating?
It's just granola, not even yogurt.
No crust, no fuss. Uncrust your mornings.
On a wheel route. So that's my big concern with Christian McCaffrey. We know that Dean was running with a receiver earlier in the year, if I'm not mistaken, whatever, down the field.
He was.
So we know he has the speed, and we know that both Baum and Dean are interchangeable in terms of you can just blitz one of them and the other can go in coverage, vice versa or whatever. So I am intrigued by that matchup.
I would definitely trust if you put Cooper DeJean out there 90% of the time against Christian McCaffrey, he's going to give up some plays, but I trust him more to make the plays over Dean or Bond interchangeably in that spot. Whereas Dean or Bond up against George Kittle, you may have some support. I think there's definitely going to be some help over top from Blankenship or Epps with that regard, because they know just as much as what you spoke to. Those are the two core weapons. Even if Pearsall is out there, he didn't practice for 2 days, and then it sounds like he was a pretty extremely limited participant today. So like, if he's even out there, how much of a Ricky Pearsall are you getting versus some of the other guys? And Juwan Jennings, he can make a big play here or there, but to be consistently your wide receiver one, the two main pieces that you have to stop, and we know Vic Fangio knows there's two pieces that he has to play against and stop.
Yep. So you mentioned it earlier. The big matchup is Kyle Shanahan against Vic Fangio, and how they decide to go at each other. Excuse me. Yeah. So I'm very intrigued by that. I like that we are rested and we are healthy and we are good to go. Like 21 of 22 starters, 22 of 22. It doesn't matter, because Epps. Even if Makuba came back, I think Epps would still be the starter. He kind of stabilized that second safety position. Having Quignon on one side. If we don't hear Quignon's name on Sunday, that's a good thing. Cooper being in the middle of the action, I love it. Like, Cooper has such IQ, such a high IQ, that just him being able to know what's going to happen. And the one thing I like about him and Q and just the way the secondary works, it's like you can have nonverbal communication. Look at each other, hand signals, whatever it is, and they know exactly what they're doing. And that's like the second year of this defense under Vic Fangio. He's been able to kind of go to the next level. Now imagine what they're going to be able to do in like the third year with this defense if most of the guys are still going to be there. Is Dean going to be here? Who knows? Hopefully. But you never know. Whoever the second corner is going to be, the safeties, whoever they're going to be. Like, there's going to be some changes, obviously, but just the way that this defense has been able to get better from week one to now, like, they were the number one defense in football last year, and everybody was like, well, if they're top 15 this year, that's good enough. They're top 5. Let's be real. This is a top 5 defense. And that's where Vic deserves so much credit. And you can see, because you have the guys that love or that know each other, like the Georgia guys. They, like, when you have that triangle in the middle of the defense, Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, and Nakobe Dean, they've been doing it for years together, because they played together at Georgia, and then they come here to the Eagles and do it again. So, like, they know how to play off of each other. That's why Nakobe, like, he knows what Jalen Carter is going to do, Jordan Davis is going to do, so when he blitzes, he's not going to run into them. He literally comes right off their backside and is blowing up the running back. So, like, that's what I mean by that nonverbal communication. Umbrella Clips asked, would you guys say that this 2025 defense is better than last year's? Well,
I would say yes, because of what he's
a lot harder, and they've played a lot better quarterbacks. So I would think that, not looking at numbers, but just looking at the play on the field, I would say that this defense is better.
Yeah, I was going to say, I agree with you. Like, when you look at the schedule and how difficult it was, the turnover that was there, I know Brandon Graham's back. Brandon Graham hasn't been playing as prominent of a role as he played last season, and he came back after the bye week. But I would say yes, because you see those massive steps forward that Jalix Hunt took. Nolan Smith missed a bunch of time. Dean missed some time. That step forward that Jordan Davis took. Jalen Carter's missed a lot of time. There's a lot of factors that you have to play into this. But I mean, this defense, so last year's defense was top 3. This defense being anywhere between 5 and 10 to me is better than last year's defense, just based on, like you said, schedule factors that they were playing against, whether that be retirements, whether that be players that aren't back. Isaiah Rodgers wasn't back. Adoree Jackson took a big step in. And we didn't think he would be able to take that big step in. Some of the injuries and some of the players who had to play against those injuries, Marcus Epps took a huge step into a role that he didn't expect to be put into because, Sidney Brown sucks, Sidney Brown injured, Andrew Makuba. Like, you didn't expect some of these situations to arise, and they ended up arising. And the fact that, like you said, statistically, they're a top 5 defense, but they land between 5 and 10 on a lot of these statistical categories. That's a massive step forward when you consider the schedule that they've played and some of the factors that have played against this defense for Vic Fangio. It speaks volumes to Vic Fangio and also the development of some of these young guys who we knew a guy like Jalen Hunt probably isn't a starter, shouldn't be a starter, but has developed massively and has taken advantage of the role that he's been given. This next man up mentality has been massive for this defense. I would say 2025, and there's a few factors that play into it, but strength of schedule versus where they land, you would expect them to be middle of the road defense, but they're much better than that.
Could you imagine if the team had gotten Myles Garrett at the trade deadline? Woo! That would be disgusting with the way that the defense has played if they had like that legit. Because then who are you double covering? Like who are you double block? I guess who are you doubling? Jalen Carter, sure. Give Myles Garrett a 1-on-1. Double Myles Garrett.
I know that we love Myles Garrett, but I mean the Max Crosby dream could be alive. Just saying.
It could be. It should be an interesting. We're going to talk about that in a couple. Let's talk about that in a month. What's the Super Bowl? I think
month and
exactly
a half.
A month. I think the Super Bowl might be in exactly.
I think it's in a but even then, give us like a week off, and we'll come back and talk off season. Give us some time.
All right. Let's get to the end of the show. We've been talking a lot. So let's give our players of the game on offense and defense, keys to the game. Then we'll go to our unheralded player from last week. And then we'll give our prediction for the wild card matchup between the Eagles and the Niners. Quickly, Connor, you can go first.
Offensively, I'm going with Saquon Barkley. I think this, there's been a lot of talk about you can take advantage of him early on in the passing situation. Saquon Barkley can definitely be a part of this offense in a number of different ways and take advantage of this defensive circumstance that the 49ers have in a number of different ways, whether that be offense, whether that be in the passing game, whether that be in the rushing attack. I think this is going to be a big game where you need to rely on Jalen Hurts using his legs, Saquon Barkley using his legs, and Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley making a connection in some way through the air as well. I think that, this is that type of game where as much as we want to lean into A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, and I think they can lean into them, I think you really gain an advantage if you're able to take advantage of Saquon Barkley. And, that comment from Robert Saleh should be enough to say, we're using Saquon Barkley. We're going to take advantage of him because we know he is as good as we know he can be. And he's as good as last year, if not better this year. For the offensive side of the ball, I think it's going to be about control and time of possession. You want to keep the ball out of Brock Purdy's hands. Brock Purdy's made some magic happen late in games. He's made some magic happen. He didn't make it happen last week. I know the schedule's been a bit easier before that, but he can make some things happen when he needs to make some things happen, and you don't want to put the ball in his hands. You want the ball to be in our hands. You want to have that, one-score lead, any type of lead, and take advantage of that versus giving the ball back to him and having 8 points or less on the board and 2 to 3 minutes in the game, Brock Purdy might be able to make something happen in that instance. For the defensive side of the ball, I'm going to go with Cooper DeJean. I think Cooper DeJean is going to be tasked with a huge task. And whether it's George Kittle, whether it's Christian McCaffrey, he's going to be tasked with one of those two. I'm going to say 99% of this game. And he's going to have to make some plays. He's going to have to keep the play in front of him. And he's going to have to make sure neither of them get yards after the catch. It's going to be important, which leads me to the next point. My key to the game for the defense is the fundamentals. Make the tackles, keep the play in front of you. This is a team that I think has some of the most yardage after the catch than any team in the NFL. So it's important to keep the play in front of you, make the play when the ball meets that offensive player, and it's going to be vital that they make those plays and just stick to the fundamentals. We've seen the fundamentals be so key to this defense in being successful, and we've also seen it be so key in reasons why this team loses in general. You could probably point to the offense in those same games, but to the same point, keeping those fundamentals is going to be very key against Kyle Shanahan and a depleted offense and defense that they have.
On the offensive side of the ball, I'm going Jalen Hurts. This has to be a Jalen Hurts game. Through the air, on the ground, with his legs, he's going to have to dictate the game. And they're going to need to stay ahead of the sticks. Like, they can't have these first, second and longs, third and longs. He's going to have to make a play, kind of try to overcome the play calls that are going to be coming into him, because We know they're not going to be that great. On the defensive side of the ball, I'm going with Jalen Carter. He's going to have to collapse the pocket. He's going to have to, stop, be key in stopping the run, stopping, Juszczyk or stopping McCaffrey. And if they can get after Purdy, maybe he'll throw the ball up and we can get some turnovers in the back. My key to the game is just overall, be smart. Like and it coincides with your, on the offensive side of the ball, kind of win the time of possession. Don't commit penalties, because these stupid penalties, infractions that the offense gets on first down, you go from 1st and 10 to 1st and 15, and you're already behind the sticks before the drive even starts or before the next play starts. Be smart, because the Niners don't commit penalties. I think they're second in the league. The Eagles are 23rd or something like that. Like, don't do anything stupid. Be smart. You're at home. There should be no false start penalties. If they're drawing at you, don't just let it go, because refs always catch the second man, and you don't want to be the second guy.
Yeah, I think I had posted that the last time that we had this ref and his crew was up against the Buccaneers, and we had 8 or 9 penalties for almost 100 yards. I think it was 85 or 86 yards total. So you cannot do, and a lot. You won that game, but when you look back at what the penalties were called for, there was a lot of false starts. There was a lot of those infractions that didn't. And I mean, it was earlier in the Kevin Patullo offensive play calling era. And exactly. But to that same point, you know that they're going to call those things, they're going to catch those things, which makes a tush push something you can use, but something that could also be a little off limits, because you know that they're going to be looking out for, especially in the playoffs.
Yeah. So, but like I said, be smart. Don't commit penalties. Don't turn the ball over. Like you mentioned, the fundamentals: keep a 5-yard play to a 5-yard play. Don't let a 5-yard McCaffrey catch turn into a 25-yard gain. Same with Kittle. And I'm looking forward to the matchups. Or whoever Cooper DeJean is covering, whoever Nakobe Dean or Zach Baldwin is covering, there's going to be fun. All right. So before we get to our prediction, Connor, let's get to our unheralded player of the week for the week 18 of the last week of the regular season. The football season always goes by way too fast. Who is your unheralded player from last week?
I'm going to go, I don't think I picked him this year, but I'm going to go with Parker Washington for the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Jaguars,
I think I picked him.
I think you did. But the Jaguars have looked so good the last, 5-6 weeks. Trevor Lawrence has looked really good. They ended up 13-4. They have a massive matchup against the Buffalo Bills this weekend. But Parker Washington went for 5 for 87 and 1 touchdown in a victory over the Titans. 41-7 victory over the Titans, which should have happened and did happen. So I'm going with Parker Washington on this one.
I'm going Tyrone Tracy of the Giants. They defeated Dallas 34-17. Tracy had 103 yards rushing, 56 on the ground, and a touchdown. And Giants doing what the Giants do, winning their last 2 games to go from having the number 1 overall pick to having like the fifth pick. So Giants doing what they do.
And you can't complain with beating the Dallas Cowboys.
That's
as much as we dislike the Giants and Commanders, we'll take Cowboys losses any day.
All right, so before we get to the Eagles pick quickly, let's go through these quickly. Rams at Panthers. Who you got?
Rams.
Even though the Panthers beat them earlier this year?
Oh, yeah, Rams. They're going to come out.
Packers at Bears.
This is a tough one. I've gone back Packers. And forth. I'm going Packers, too. I think the Packers are going to do it.
Bills at Jaguars.
Man, there's so much pressure on Josh Allen, but if there was someone I would trust, like this would be the game where Trevor Lawrence finally starts to falter. I'm going Bills.
I'm going Bills, too. Chargers at Patriots.
The Patriots have had the easy schedule in the NFL, so it's eventually at some point I know they're going to lose. I know how much people love Herbert, but I'm going I'm going with the Patriots on this one.
I'll go Chargers just to go against you. Texans at Steelers.
Well, I'm going Texans, man. The Steelers barely got in, didn't deserve to get in. No one in the AFC North, just like the NFC South. No one really deserved to get in there.
I'm going to go Steelers just for the hell of it. All right. Prediction time for the Eagles and the Niners. Also, both of our preseason AFC team that we picked to go to the Super Bowl was the Ravens, I think, for both of us. They didn't make it. Just saying. We both picked the Ravens, right?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I picked the Ravens and the Eagles, so I'm holding out hope on the Eagles here.
All right. Prediction time, Connor. I wrote mine down, so I can't change it. I will allow you to go first. I finished the regular season 9-8. You finished the regular season 8-9.
I'm going with the Eagles. I think the Eagles are going to get this, and I think they're going to take advantage of the fact there's, some injuries. I give tons of credit and credence to Shanahan and what he's been working with. Do I think he should be head coach of the year candidate? Absolutely, because he's working with more against him than for him. But I'm going with the Eagles, but I don't think it's going to be like an overly high scoring game. I think it's going to be 24-21 Eagles.
I would consider that high scoring. I got 20.
I guess for the Eagles, I guess
24-17 Eagles. I don't have a bunch of faith in this offense right now. More like the offensive play caller. But I do have the Eagles winning and surviving and advancing and potentially hosting a divisional game next week. We'll see. Obviously, we don't know pretty much. Well, they will know by the end of Saturday night because both the other two NFC games are Saturday. So they'll know if they win where they'll be going or if they'll be hosting, who they'll be hosting, if they will be hosting.
Before we get to this, the Washington Commanders have already named their new OC. Assistant QB coach David Blatt is getting promoted to OC.
That's not exciting at all.
We stood by that Dan Quinn wants a yes man. Dan Quinn doesn't want someone that he's going to butt heads with, and Dan Quinn wanted somebody, and this feels like the optimal Dan Quinn addition. Sadly.
I really want to know what happened, why Kingsbury wanted to leave, the mutual parting of the ways.
But they've kind of alluded to that there was disagreements with how the offense was run, which is insane because Dan Quinn's a defensive coordinator.
That was more from the front office to the coaching staff, not Dan Quinn. It was the front office.
But then you see that the head office had more say in players, and they were frustrated with some of the players and personnel that were out there. Like that's a team that continues to scream dysfunction, which is totally fine with me because we're in the same divisions.
Exactly. Thank you all for tuning into the Kelly Green Hour, the playoff edition, as the Eagles are set to do battle with the San Francisco 49ers. As always, follow us on Twitter at Kelly Green Hour. Follow Connor on Twitter at Connor10. Follow me on Twitter at LJRL54. And follow the Eagles Pimple Network on Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, and wherever you get your podcasts. We will be back Tuesday with a review of this game. Hopefully, we'll be back twice next week, which means we are preparing to talk about an NFC divisional matchup. Thank you all for tuning in to the Kelly Green Hour. For Connor, I'm LJ.
Fly, Eagles, fly.